You're in a good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Today I'm talking about waiting our entire life for one person's acceptance or approval, wondering what to do and how to get it. You know, it's interesting. Why do we need another person's acceptance and approval to be whole anyway? It doesn't make any sense. But you know, I fell prey to it myself too. There was a time in my life for a long period of time that I wanted one person's approval. And no matter what I did, no matter the hoops that I jumped through, no matter what I excelled in or succeeded in or created or any of that, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. And I didn't get their approval and I didn't get their acceptance, and I fought for it and I worked for it, and it just wasn't going to happen. And it's funny how it wasn't until I figured out a lot about myself and I figured out on approval and acceptance and what it really means, did I understand why we do this kind of stuff, why we put ourselves through this hell, why it means so much, and to really consider the situation we're in. And so today, on today's podcast, Live Your True Life podcast, we're going to be talking about that, why we look for other people's approval, why it's so important, why we'll go to the ends of the earth to get somebody else to accept us. And I'm going to be talking about that. I'm going to talk about how we can actually get our ultimate approval and what we can do to overcome the situation and actually jump up and create a life that is awesome and worth living for, a life that we're actually living our true life instead of trying to live a life to impress other people. You know, it's interesting because one of the reasons I figured out that we look for other people's approval and acceptance is because we've done it since we were born. Since we were born, we've done the same way of thought process. It's normal to us. You know, we've always done it. And let me give you an example, because I think this will put it into perspective for you. You know, back in the day when you were learning how to ride a bike, right? You're learning how to ride a bike, and your mom or your dad or your caretaker, whoever, grandma, grandpa, uncle, aunt, put those training wheels on the bike, and you went outside, you know, on the driveway or what have you, and you got on the bike, and your family member's holding the bike for you so nothing happens, and you start pedaling. And they're holding onto the bike, probably the back of the seat and the front, and running down the street with you, and eventually you get the hang of it, and eventually you're going and going and going, and your family member's running with you, and eventually they let go, and there you are, just it's all you. And remember how happy you were about that? Remember how cool that was? It was great. Yeah, you were riding a bike. Yeah, you had training wheels, but it didn't matter. I mean, heck, 4 wheels, that's a little bit, you know, riding on that, and that was pretty cool. And so it wasn't like at that time when you were that young, it wasn't like you were like, hey, self, that's really awesome, you did a really great job, I'm really proud of you, you really excelled today on riding that bike, and, you know, kudos for you, and I really accept and approve you because you're an awesome, righteous kid. No, that doesn't go through our head at all, right? What happens? We look at mom and dad, we go, wow, and they're like, that is awesome. We're so proud of you, son. We're so proud of you, daughter. It's so cool. And you go, yeah, I impress mom and dad. Rocking it. And think about that. Think about how that set in. Okay? Even when you were taking your first steps, like let's rewind about that. Taking your first steps, right? Who was there? Mom and dad, you know, whoever raised you, and they were like, yeah, great job. Whoa, good job. Good job. Remember that? Yeah. Who were you trying to impress? Them. Okay. Figured that one out. Remember when you had to clean your room? And your parents would ask you to clean your room. See, mine was always kind of a mess, a total disaster zone. It was not a pigsty, okay? It wasn't food stuff and all that kind of stuff. Mine was just kind of a disaster. I like to pile my papers in one corner, and I'm still kind of like that a little bit, okay? I'm still kind of like that. That's cool. That's a sign of genius from what I've heard, by the way. But anyway, you clean your room, and your parents would come in, and if you did a good job, they'd be like, wow, this is excellent. Yeah. You get to stay up an extra hour tonight and watch TV because you're such a good kid. So think about that. All the stuff that we got when we were kids, all the congratulations, all the kudos, all the ribbons, all the trophies, all the stuff. Remember? But who were we trying to impress? Mom and dad. Okay? We weren't trying to impress ourselves or get our own acceptance and approval. We wanted their acceptance. We wanted their approval. And every time they were happy with us, life was good. life was great. Life was awesome. But when they weren't happy with us, our world was falling apart. Things were bad. Okay? And so think about it. That's how we were raised. That's how we were born. That's how all this stuff happened. And so that's where we come from in our mindset, even as adults for many of us, because we haven't changed our perspective on approval and acceptance. We've kept it in that same pattern, and that's okay, but I'm going to explain how we can make those changes and how we can move on. It's interesting because this line of thinking, this perspective, affects us as adults. And how does that affect us? Well, when we're always looking outside of ourselves for approval, it makes us feel very small and weak. Because we haven't figured out really that we can actually get it inside of us, right? So we're looking outside of ourselves for acknowledgement, for acceptance, for accolades. And it makes us feel really needy when you think about it as well, because we're needing their acceptance. We're needing their approval. And anytime you need something from someone, it's kind of being needy. And, you've had a friend that's kind of needy, where they always need something from you and everything. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about that? I know we try to help people and you care about people, but there comes a time when you go, oh, God, there's so-and-so again. She's, yeah. And you love them and you care about them, but you're like, God, if she wasn't just so needy. You know what I'm saying? It's like when you see somebody get into a relationship with someone and they're extremely needy. And you know that person's going to get walked all over by the other person because the other person knows that they need them so bad they can do whatever they want to them. It's very similar. When we need acceptance and approval from other people, it's like they can smell it. Like they can figure it out. Like they're on to us or something. You know what I'm saying? So what happens when we actually get approval from other people? Let's talk about that. So we don't need to focus solely on the fact that we don't have any approval. Let's focus on the fact that there's certain people out there that actually give us approval. They actually approve of us. They accept us. And so that's really cool. So we're not having to get it from them. They're giving it to us. So the first thing we do is we go, wow, thank you so much. You're awesome. I really, really care about you. And you go, yeah, this person's really cool. I want to hang out with them more. I want to spend more time with them. I want to surround myself with this person because they accept me. Okay? The next thing that goes through our mind is, man, they're really awesome people, and I'm really stoked about this, and I just love her, and she's just awesome. Okay? And normally what we do is we throw back approval in their general direction. I'm going to approve them too. If they approve me, I approve them. But what happens kind of right after that? I would say give it a couple of days, right? Is you forget about it. You move on. It's not that big of a deal. So their approval, once you get it, is kind of like chasing somebody for a first date, right? Like for a year, you're chasing it. You're chasing it. You're calling, you're text messaging, you're happening to run into them somewhere. And after a year, finally, you break them down, right? And the next thing you know, you're going out on a date with them. And after that date, you're like, yeah, that was great. Okay, I'm on to the next thing. It's very similar with approval. It's that chase. We're chasing the approval. But when we get it, it's not that big of a deal anymore. So think about that. Really place that into your mind because that really tells you how valuable other people's approval is. It's valuable for about a day or two, and that's about it. You know what I'm saying? And so it's very interesting how we need that so bad, but once we get it, it's not that big of a deal, okay? So let's flip the script. What happens when we don't get the approval? What happens? What happens when we don't get it? Interesting. What happens? Well, when somebody doesn't give us approval and we want it really bad from them, it becomes our sole focus in life. It becomes like our everything. Like all of a sudden we have a second job, and that's to get John to approve us. Because John doesn't approve me, and I'm going to get approval and acceptance from that son of a bitch if it kills me. Do you see what I'm saying? And all you do is think about it. Some of us still have a family member that doesn't give us approval. Some of us have a mom or a dad that's never approved us or accepted us. And we do everything in our living, breathing body to impress them. And what happens? They don't approve you. No, they don't. It's your sole focus. You want it so bad and you don't get it. And we can't live without it. We can't live without it. I mean, I have friends of mine who are in their 50s and 60s who are still trying to get mom or dad's approval. Still hasn't happened. They still go after it every single chance they get. People don't grow out of this. This isn't something that you go, yep, I'm at that age, so I'm done with looking for approval from other people. It has nothing to do with age. It has to do with insight and wisdom and finding another perspective that makes sense. Because, see, remember back as a child, when you were born and then as you progressed in age, we were there to get approval from our family because our mom and dad were gods. They were gods. They were huge. Think about that. And we looked up to them, with great love and nostalgia and care and just oh my God. And so all we wanted from them was acceptance. And so many people never grew out of that. They never moved on. And because many of us never moved on, we never created a new perspective to look at how to get acceptance and approval and why we're still looking for approval outside of ourselves and how to change that. Right? There was no blueprints. It wasn't like, at the age of 18, it was like, okay, now we got to really change the whole thought process. The acceptance and approval goes on to you now. It's not about finding it outside of yourself, and here you go. This is how you do it. And that's not what happens. And it's interesting, when we're trying to get that approval from other people, we'll do anything and everything to get it. And we lose ourselves in that process. We begin to lose ourselves. We lose our identity. We lose who we are. We begin to discredit our own life because if the person that we want acceptance and approval from doesn't approve what we do, like as far as career-wise, we try to find a better career. If the person we're trying to impress is not giving us acceptance or approval about us being gay, straight, whatever, then we try to figure out how to either hide that or deal with it. If the person that we're trying to get approval from doesn't accept a potential spouse that we want to get married to, a potential person that we're into, then we try to figure out how to overcome that. And when you think about all this stuff, it really takes us off target. Like, we're no longer our own self. Now we're living a life for someone else. All of a sudden, we're living a life for this person, to impress them, to make them happy, to make them interested, for them to care and love us. We're no longer thinking about, well, you know what? It's about me. And if I'm in love with this person, then that's okay. That's my life. You know what I'm saying? If they don't like it and they're not for it, no big deal. But we don't see it that way. We go, oh, God, I just want their approval so bad. I mean, if they would just approve me, what can I do? What kind of hoop can I jump through to get their approval? And I think many of us are still stuck in that process, and we haven't figured out how to move on. So how do we flip the script and take back our power? How do we do it? Well, it begins with the change in perspective. That's one of my favorite words, hence that's one of the names in the show that you are listening to right now. Live Your True Life Perspectives. We got to change our perspective on life. We got to grow, find one that works to our lifestyle and for our future and for our current situation, and we roll with it. And so we change our perspective, and we realize that there's ultimately another way. There's another way to live. There's another way in life. There's another way to get what you want. And so you got to give ourselves the power, and that way is ultimately repurposing power. So taking the power from the outside and seeing and giving ourselves the power so we can look within so we don't go without. So when we're flipping the script and taking back our power, we have to realize that oftentimes we've been giving everybody else the power over us. Okay? By wanting other people's acceptance and approval, and by making our life changes based on their acceptance, we have literally given our power away. We've actually given the purpose of our life away to this person because obviously we don't know what makes us tick, and we don't know what we want because we need their approval so bad we'll make these changes. So giving ourselves back the power and looking within us and realizing that, guess what? Approval and acceptance comes from within. So it's interesting. I recently did a YouTube video that came out on acceptance and approval, and if you'd like to watch that video, go to my channel on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and in the search engine put Ashley Burgess, Berges. You'll find it. You'll find a lot of other really cool and interesting videos as well. Various topics from sex with a narcissist to dealing in a marriage with a spouse with borderline personality disorder, to other useful tips and self-help tips that can really help make your life better, stronger, and healthier, and definitely happier for you to live. So when we're flipping this script and realizing that we can change our perspective, we can take back our power. And by taking back our power, what are we doing? We're giving ourselves the power to approve and accept ourselves. Okay? So how do we ultimately make that a reality? So we shifted the balance of power from someone else to ourselves. So how do we make that a reality? Well, it starts within us. We have to stop looking for acceptance outside of ourselves and begin within. We have to stop looking for acceptance outside of ourselves and begin within. Okay? Because ultimately, that's where it's supposed to be at. As I say a million times, you were born on this planet on your own. Even if you're a twin, you're born alone and you die alone. Even if somebody dies within 90 seconds of you, it's still not the same damn time. So that means that you're supposed to get to know yourself. Your relationship with yourself is your most important relationship you'll ever have. And the more we know ourselves, the better our relationships are with other people. The more we love ourselves and unconditionally love ourselves, the way we can unconditionally love other people, because we're our hardest critics. So if we can get over that, we can figure it all out, right? Interesting, being the toughest critic. But we actually have to find the acceptance from within. Interesting. So when we realize that the more we go outside of ourselves for acceptance, the more empty we become. Okay? And we realize that we get more and more empty when we go outside of ourselves. We have to begin with this acceptance proclamation by forgiving our past. Many of us have pasts that we're not that happy about. We didn't make always the right choices. Maybe we screwed up a little bit. Maybe we chose poorly. Maybe we made some bad decisions. I think everybody has. Some of you have made more bad decisions than others. Hey, I made bad decisions too. And there was a time when I couldn't overcome it. I couldn't forgive myself. And the next step is to forgive your past and forgive your mistakes. When I was able to forgive my mistakes and realize that my past made me who I am today, good, bad, and indifferent, which I think is mostly all good. It's really great, actually. If I hadn't gone through some of those learning curves and all that other stuff, I would have never figured it out. You know what I'm saying? And that's a big deal. And so I think that when you begin to forgive those mistakes, I mean, it's just logical that you begin to accept yourself more. And we forgive our friends' mistakes and we accept their past, so why can't we do it for ourselves? And that begins with letting go of our old ways of thinking. Okay, about what we define as good, bad, and different, what we define as important in our life. When we let go of the old ways of thinking that hold us back, that negative broken record about how we screwed up and how we got in the way of our own success, when we let go of that and accept who we truly are, we begin to get past the past mistakes, get past the past, and move on. And in the process, when we realize why we've been trained to look outside of ourselves for acceptance, we begin to understand this. So like what I was talking about earlier, in the beginning, we were trained to look outside of ourselves for acceptance. You know, we weren't over there on that bike or learning how to walk and sitting there saying, hey, self, that was really great, Ashley. You put one foot in front of the other. It's really good. You're doing great. You're getting out of the baby situation, getting into being a toddler. Real proud of your toddler ways. We're going to keep on moving. Very successful. No, instead you looked at your mom and dad. They gave you a big hug when you walked 5 feet. It was a big damn deal. And that's how we looked at acceptance and approval. And so now that we realize that's where it all comes from, we can make great changes to our old ways of thinking. we got to also accept the fact that when people accept us, it's great for a minute, right? Because if acceptance from other people is that big of a damn deal, you know what I'm saying? Then when they accepted us, it would be like a proclamation. You know, the president would go on the news and talk about it, about how so-and-so accepted Ashley Burgess today, and it's a huge deal, and Ashley's going to be in debt to her for the rest of her life. No, it's not that big of a deal. So when you flip the script and you say, well, why am I making such a damn deal about how, you know, my mom or my dad doesn't accept me? Because when they finally do, I don't give a shit about it anyway. Do you see what I'm saying? It's just because we want what we can't have. And it's not that big of a deal. So we got to see that we're looking for acceptance from those who don't accept us. So we got to take our power back. It's very interesting. I talk about this in my office, and if you look at the video on YouTube, you'll understand what I'm talking about. You know, if you look at acceptance like a bottle of water, and I have that bottle of water, and you want that bottle of water because you want me to accept you, when you finally figure out that you have your own bottle of water and you don't need mine, you figure out that you don't need my acceptance because you already got your bottle of water, okay? Once you accept you, you don't need other people's acceptance. And what's funny about it is when you finally accept yourself, all of a sudden everybody else accepts you. Everybody else gets you. It is hilarious. It is hilarious. It is the weirdest thing you've ever seen, okay? It really is. It's like, you know how when they talk about how you got to have a job before you get another job, you know, because otherwise you look desperate. And so all of a sudden all the job offers come in while you have a great job, right? But when you have no job, you can't get a job to save your life. It's the same thing as acceptance, right? If you already accept yourself, everybody else is going to accept you anyway because you don't need their acceptance anymore. So why should they hold anything from you, right? Because it's not valued anymore. So them holding your acceptance, holding the acceptance that you want from them, no longer is valued. So why do they hold on to it anymore? They don't care. They were just holding on to it because, I don't know, subconsciously they knew you needed it. So they were going to hold on to that power play. That's very profound, by the way, what was just said. So when you think about that, we have to begin to take our power back by beginning to love ourselves. Right? By loving ourselves and understanding ourselves and loving ourselves unconditionally, accepting our past, forgiving our mistakes, and being our best friend. You owe it to yourself to be your best friend because otherwise no one else will be. And it's funny, it's very similar. When you actually care about yourself and you're a friend to yourself, everybody else wants to be your friend too. It's funny. It's really funny how that is. It's like walking into a room and knowing that you own the room and you feel great about it. Everybody wants to talk to you. If you walk into that same room and you feel inadequate and you feel scared, nobody's going to talk to you. You're going to stand there by yourself the entire time, and guess what? Even when you talk to people, they're going to end up walking off from you. But when you come in there and you got a group, it's like all of a sudden the group gets bigger and bigger and bigger because you're not needy and desperate. You don't need it. You don't need it. It's really funny how that is, and it's on every single level in our life. You got to start accepting yourself, and this can start with healthy affirmations that can go a long way to reprogram a self-sabotaging mindset. So you can start accepting yourself, and you can use the help of affirmations. I use it all the time. Back in the day, I still have my affirmations. I used to have them actually on my mirror. They're memorized now, and I think about it all the time. But I had it on my bathroom mirror, in my car, on my computer, and I would say them in the morning, noon, and night about how, I'm healthy and happy. I love myself. I unconditionally love myself. I accept myself for everything. I approve of everything I do, that kind of sort of thing. And I don't look for approval outside of myself. I have the power within. I am a powerhouse, whatever. It's whatever you want to say that's positive, present, and in the present moment. That's what an affirmation should be. And all it is used to flip the script from our past stuff. And I think it goes a long way to stopping that necessary need for approval from other people. It's just not necessary. Why? And I wanted it too for a long time, and I lived a life desiring it and wanting it, and it just, I kind of finally hit my head against the wall and realized at the time that I wasn't going to get it. But I didn't realize also that it wasn't about that anyway. I had to approve myself. I had to accept myself. Until I approve and accept myself, it doesn't matter. None of the other stuff means anything. It's all about me anyway. It's all about you. It's not about mom or dad or boss or spouse or any of that. It's really about you. And it's all up to you to approve and accept yourself as an individual, as a person, as a spirit God, as an amazing individual that has unique qualities that nobody else has. That's the way life is. And once we figure that out, then everything kind of just opens up, and the world seems to be our oyster, and we tend to figure out that, you know what, wow, we could have done this a long time ago. Why haven't I been doing this the whole time? My life could have been better, awesome, but you know what? We had to go through the muck and yuck to get to the next side. That's just the way life is. Yin yang, got to see the negative before you see the positive. You got to understand the other aspects of life, and you got to be able to be there, gone through the process, walk through the trenches to explain it to other people to help them. And that's just what I did. I've been there. I've been looking for approval from other people, and I finally just gave up on it and realized that it was all about myself. It was inside me. It was part of me. And when I unlocked that, when I found that secret passage of approval, and I started working on it and working on it and working on it, all of a sudden, yeah, I didn't look for approval from other people. And it's funny, when you're not looking for it, it comes to you. And so realize that we have all the power we need within. Everything that we need to facilitate, we can create from within. The power that we have for our life is within. And that's what matters. And that's what's so awesome about it. We've been given all the tools. We just got to find and unlock the doors to find those. The secrets that we didn't know existed. And when we change our perspective slightly and realize that as we evolve, our perspective can evolve on our life, it changes the dynamics. Rules go out the window. There are no rules. And all of a sudden, we begin to live a life that's worth living for ourselves. And we become a beacon of light for other people to look up to. And you can help other people as you go through this same process. You can encourage other people, help them to see the light, to help them to see the new perspective, to understand where they stand, the value that they bring to the table, the power they have within. You can shine the light and help them. Because as you go through the process, you have the knowledge to help them as well. Love you to check out my website, ashleyburgess.com, ashleyberges.com. You can check out the various blogs and radio shows. I love Spreaker, and I love being on Spreaker. It's a great, amazing platform, and I love having my podcast on Spreaker. If you'd like to reach out to me and contact me to work with me as your life coach or therapist, I am totally up for the job. Go to ashleyburgess.com, click on that contact page, and send me a message. I will respond within 48 hours. I look forward to hearing from you. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel in the meantime at Ashley Burgess. Let me know of some subject matters that you would like me to cover here on the podcast and things that you're interested in knowing about or adding to in an upcoming show. Stay tuned. I'll have a great show for you next coming up, and I hope that this has helped you, empowered you, and I hope that you can share this with others so they can be empowered too to live your true life.